Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be working on one of my favorite retro MTB shifters from the 90s. These are the STX RCs 3x7. There's also a 8-speed version that's a bit slicker, the MC34s. So today we're going to work on the 3-speed side. I'm going to be doing a 2-part video. The second one will be for the other 7-speed side. So let's begin on dismantling this one. So we're going to remove the plastic cap here. You're going to need a Phillips to take off this small little bolt. And here's number 4. Yeah, make sure that before you're working on this to relieve the tension on the spring. So you want this to go down to number 1. And take that off. That should come off as well. You can remove the plastic kind of seal. I've put this back into the lever body to just keep it in place and make it easier for us to remove this first nut. This isn't the case on here, so you're going to need a number 10 wrench. I can't find my wrench, so I'm just going to use this number 10 on this tool. So this is going to go clockwise to take off. And we can now take that off. We're going to take off the top plate. First coil spring. We can now remove this bushing. And that's come off. You can now take off this lever. Right, there's this plate here to remove it, so you need to take off this tiny little clip first. I'm going to use a very thin flathead screwdriver to get behind that. So we're going to lift that up and it's going to take off the tension on that little spring right there. It's finally lifted up. Underneath here you have another spacer. Yeah. Copper coloured spacer. There's another little thin one just underneath that. Oop, and it went flying. Got the next lever. So let's take off this right pull. There's a spring. You can take it up off that pivot. We can now lift up the pull, and we're going to take off parts on that cam, or the sprocket, sorry. There's another bushing here. Just want to lift over this though. Yep, got it. Take that off. The other end of the spring was on the left hole. So underneath that there was a spring, fairly self-evident where it goes, and the cam. I'm going to wash the body while I'm at it, so I'm going to take off this barrel adjuster. You can also take off the dial. There's these very, very tiny screws here. They're very often damaged actually. If you want to go further, you can even take off the dial and clean that. And finally here there's this the dial thing that and the other end of the bolt. I forgot to take off this pull here. It's definitely worth cleaning actually. So taking off the clip, and there's a spring. There's also this plastic part. I guess we might as well just take it off while we're at it. Wash underneath. Just a small little astuce if you really don't want to remove this little mechanism side here. I mean, it's not super hard to undo if you really want to, but if you want to just clean up the screen, you just need to remove the 2 screws underneath and then just slightly open it up to take off the dial indicator cover, whatever it's called. And I have taken mine off, and I've dabbed a little bit of paint, black paint, to kind of try and see if I can cover up the scratches and the black marking. You know, if we're going to go full restoration, we might just go for it, you know. Right, this is how I've set everything up. I would recommend to you to kind of put them in that similar order and then wash them in a sort of a group, and then set them back up again. It'll make it easier when you're putting this back together again. Right, so I've given everything a clean. We're now going to reassemble everything again, and then I'm going to put some grease on some of the parts first beforehand, but we're going to put some grease more or less as we go along. I'm going to begin off with the putting the spring probably and the cam part here and the sprocket together onto the pivot. I'm going to use what I usually use for shifters, Teflon grease. I think that's the best one really. I'm going to dab a bit of grease on the underneath the cam. We're going to grab the spring that goes underneath it. So the tip of the spring that's kind of sticking out is going to go into the slot on the cam. Fairly simple. There. And the other tip of that spring is going to go on the hole right here on the top left. So we're going to slide that through now. That's going to go right there. Now it's pretty obvious which side it goes on because there's an E stamped on it. The bushing is going to go sitting on the top of this. There. We're going to reinstall the first pull, so that will be on the left side here, this one. It's fairly easy to know which way to put it on. There's a dot if you look closely on this one. Put it there, and eventually it's actually going to turn, holding this in place. I think I might leave it like that. See, and the next pull, which is going to sit in this position. On top of that pull, there's a spring. The longer tip is actually going to sit in front here, and you want to lodge that all the way down. I'm going to put this onto the lever just to hold it, and the next part's going to be the lever, and you're going to want it to be sitting in between here, like so. You can now grab the spring. So the hook part is going to latch over this pull right here, and the other tip of that spring go right in front of this part here. On top of that, you have this very delicate thin washer. And there's another copper one that sits on top of the thin one. There's a triangle shaped plate that fits on top of here. So in those two holes, the pivots for those pulls are going to fit in. Now that other tip of that spring that's right there needs to sit right there in front of there's like a metal tab that's sticking out, so we need to bring that to here. I finally managed to get the little tip of that spring in front of that little slot wedge thing on that plate. It's took me a good 10 minutes to actually tension it up enough to be able to get it around. You'll get there in the end though. Here there's a circlip that's going to fit into the wedge of the top of that pivot. We're going to stick the next lever back on soon, so we're going to want to prepare the pull on this lever underneath there. That was wedged in there, cleaned underneath it. And then after here you have a spring. And then the pull should go like this normally. And then there's a clip on the top of that. Now on the other side of this lever, there's this bushing that's gonna run through the nylon bushing plastic part. It sits on the top here. We're now going to reinstall this back onto the pivot running through here, and that pull is going to need to be pulled back, and it's essentially going to go in between here as it's going to eventually push this cam towards there. Yeah, kind of got it. I'm going to pull that back. Okay, wow. Finally got that on. And here we're going to have this spring. So the tip of that spring that's going downwards is going to go into the hole right there on that lever. That other tip of that spring is actually going to go on one of the little slots here on this plate. So that it looks like the plate's going towards here. So what you do just underneath it, grab anything that allows you to just pull this back and stick it into the correct slot. Now you want to make sure that this spring here is fairly flat, because when we're going to put the bolt down, you don't want this spring to overlap. So we're going to put that nut back on, thread this nut back on. Blimey, it took ages to just get this on. So now it's going anti-clockwise to screw back on. Yeah, okay, and it's working perfectly, great. And on top of here you have this black cover. We can now put that back on. So on the shifter itself, you are going to have this plastic seal that sits above the lever. So I'm going through. It's gone there. You have to push it very hard. Yeah, you do. Right, now we can put that dowel in. There's a little tip of it there. Be careful of those, because those can easily break. Let's go ahead and put the cover back on here. Let's run that bolt going through now, that way everything's held properly. Let's put the two little screws underneath it. Drop it down. So right here, that little plastic tip needs to go where that metal, the slit is on that metal arm. You have two little screws that are holding the indicator down. The last one underneath here. Screw that down. Let's grab the barrel adjuster. Great, so the shifter is shifting way better than it was before. It's a lot more solid. So I hope this helped you repair, restore, clean, rebuild your STX RC MC33 free speed shifter. Until the next time, and for part 2 of the 7-speed side that I will publish fairly soon. Thank you for listening. Good night. Peace out.